Germany, 1945. A backdrop for the largest war in modern history and the mass annihilation of millions of people. As the Allies slowly broke through the front lines, the Germans were driven back to Berlin, where a great battle would ensue. With the casualties numbering in the millions, the Battle of Berlin quickly became one of the bloodiest battles of the war. As the relentless Russian forces pressed harder from the north, south, and the east, the Germans were driven deeper and deeper into the city. Although in a battle that saw the suicide of Hitler, the death of millions of soldiers, and the eventual surrender of the German army, the greatest cultural loss came after the official surrender. In a fire started by several German officers, the Kaiser Friedrich Museum was severely damaged, as well as the works housed there inside, including one true masterpiece, St. Matthew and the Angel by Caravaggio. Michelangelo Merisi was born in Milan in 1571 before his family relocated to Caravaggio when he was young. It was only after his father and mother died that he began to work in art, being apprenticed to serve for 4 years with Simone Pietrosano. During his training, he began to mimic the simplistic naturalism of German art, which would prove key to his later works. In late 1592, he was forced to leave the Milan-Caravaggio area after partially wounding a police officer.
He was a particularly hot-tempered man. Even as early on as we can tell, he was quick to anger, and this caused problems for him later down the road. He injured a police officer in Milan, which is why he ended up in Rome.
His move to Rome proved beneficial for the poor, starving artist. It was during his time in Rome that he received his first public commission. He was commissioned by the Church of San Luigi dei Francesi, more specifically, the Contarelli Chapelle. He was to paint 2 scenes of St. Matthew's life for the church. The first 2 pieces for the chapel included the calling of St. Matthew and the martyrdom of St. Matthew. This was originally where the contract would end. However, after the sculptures provided by another artist were rejected and the paintings received such a strong response, Caravaggio was commissioned for a 3rd painting. When Caravaggio presented his 3rd piece for the Contarelli Chapel, it was the subject of much discord. His new image depicting the inspiration of St. Matthew was not greeted with the praise and adulation the first 2 were.
After being recommissioned for a 3rd painting, it took Caravaggio almost 2 whole years to complete the final piece. This kept the chapel waiting longer than they had hoped, so tensions were already high, as you would expect. Then, when he unveiled his new masterpiece, it was rejected. The chapel, which is dedicated to St. Matthew, was not pleased with the depiction of their beloved saint. You can see why they would have been upset. Notice how grisly Matthew looks in the picture. His hair is unkempt, and he has an overall disheveled look. But perhaps the 2 things that had them most upset were the depictions of his feet and his relationship with the angel. Here you can see his feet. They are a very prevalent portion of the work, but they are not particularly clean. They believed a saint would have had the means to have clean feet, and it was a sign of poor standing to have unclean feet, at least in paintings. The other would be here. The relationship between Matthew and the angel is intriguing. It would appear that the angel is teaching Matthew how to write or leading his hand. This was considered an insulting view on the event because it depicted him as unintelligent.
After the original 3rd was rejected, Caravaggio went back to the drawing board, where he would eventually produce The Inspiration of St. Matthew, a milder take on the scene of St. Matthew's life, with the angel staying a safe distance above him. He would again reclaim the title of the most popular painter in Rome. However, this would not be the end of St. Matthew and the angel. When St. Matthew and the Angel was rejected by the Contarelli Chapel in the Church of San Luigi dei Francesi, it was all but forgotten. A friend and patron of Caravaggio's bought the painting from him for his personal collection. It would stay here for many years until it ultimately found its way to the Kaiser Friedrich Museum in the early 1900s. Here, within the walls of the Kaiser Friedrich Museum, the painting regained popularity as a true masterpiece. This would prove to be its last home.
In late 1945, as the war was coming to an end, the Russians were crushing the Germans. Every day they would push closer and closer to Berlin, until around mid-April, they were practically knocking on Hitler's door. With the Americans on their way in the west, and the Russians attacking from any other direction, he saw no way out. The city was being destroyed. And as the Germans were falling back, this was catastrophic for our friend St. Matthew and his angel.
As was typical, when the Germans retreated, they were to destroy anything they deemed valuable. This included the art in their museums. This is where the long rejected painting by the great master of the Baroque era would meet its end, in a partially burning German art museum.
We are very lucky someone at the Kaiser took a picture of the work. Otherwise, we would have no memory of this masterpiece. If you look here in the bottom corner, you see a line. This is not the painting. In fact, this is a defect in the lens of the camera.
As the Russians entered Berlin from the east and Allies from the west, they were shocked at the destruction and salvaged what they could. This did not include St. Matthew and the Angel, one of the most prized paintings of the Baroque era.
It truly is a shame. This, in my opinion, is the most beautiful painting of its time. The emotion that it possessed, the emotion that it evoked, that is why it is revered as such a magnificent painting, because it inspired emotion. All art is made in an attempt to inspire emotion, and St. Matthew and the Angel inspired more emotion than most paintings have. It truly is a shame.
Thank you.